Hello, Meow. I'm Master Tofuflower and welcome to my crafting channel. I will keep posting videos, so please subscribe and turn on the notification button so you don't miss any of my videos. We're doing something different this time. Instead of working on a fountain pen, we're making a black cat fountain pen pillow. Meow! In this tutorial, I will show you the Makiji priming method of Maki, which means sprinkle, and Ji, which means ground or primer. This term is a confusing word not only because it sounds similar to makie, which is a painting technique. The word Makiji has several meanings. Let's check the Master Flower's Dictionary of Urushi Craft First Edition! Firstly, Makiji means to sprinkle jinoko. Strictly speaking, the term is specific to the material, jinoko. It is called makisabi if tonoko is used. However, people often use the makisabi and makiji interchangeably. Secondly, it means a texture finish, named Makiji finish. It is coarse textured, which is usually satin or matte. This surface is relatively resistant to scratch. Hence, it is often used for tableware and utensils. We'll cover this in the next video. Thirdly, it means Makiji priming method, which is one of the 3 standard Urushi priming methods. Hanji priming method is good for large, smooth surface. However, it is very difficult to apply an even layer of primer with brush or spatula on irregular surface such as a statue. The Makiji priming method sprinkles the primer powder on the substrate instead of brushing it. The Makiji primer is relatively more even but thinner than Hanji primer. This method is particularly good for irregular surface because it requires less sanding. Traditionally, it was considered less durable than the Hanji primer, but some studies showed the physical properties of the Hanji and Makiji were similar. Also, the unfinished Makiji primer is very abrasive. It shortens the lifespan of a brush significantly. So, use a cheap or old brush for it. This is the flowchart of the Makiji priming method. It begins with sealing the substrate with raw urushi. Then, you sprinkle 3 different grades of primer powder on the substrate painted with rose urushi. Please watch my previous videos of Lesson 1, 2, and Tutorial 3 before starting this project. For this project, you will need gloves and mask for your safety, a furo that we made in Lesson 2, paintbrush, spatula, lint-free cloth, solvents such as camphor oil, shin yoshino paper, raw urushi such as seshime, black urushi such as kuro naganuri urushi and raw ilo urushi, washing up liquid, water, vegetable oil, funzutsu and sieve, 120 and 400 grit sandpaper, needle files, X-Acto knife, steel wire brush, 60 grit silicon carbide, surugazumi, jinoko powder, yellow tonoko powder, sumiko powder, and your 3D printed object. As always, wear your gloves and keep the room well ventilated. You must wear a good quality dust mask when working with powder. Be safe, meow meow. Step 1. For this project, my servant has downloaded a cat phone holder 3D model from Thingiverse. I've put the link in the description box. It was scaled up to 140% and printed with PLA filament. On last Christmas Eve, I dug out my old 3D printer and gave it to my servant. 3D printing and urushi are a good combination because it allows us to design and make interesting complex objects that can be painted with urushi. The urushi priming process removes printing line and repair printing defect and make the object watertight. It also increases the chemical resistance and provides some heat insulation for the 3D printed object. Two hours of printing may seem a bit long, but it would take hours of sculpting if I'm making it from wood. I've been using Urushi on PLA printed objects for years. Urushi actually binds with PLA very well, maybe even better than acrylic plastic. I've been using this 3D printed Urushi fountain pen stand for more than 3 years with no issue. Step 2. Remove all the support materials and strings. I usually start with X-Acto knife. Then, you may shape it with sandpaper and needle files if necessary. Step 3. Sand all the surface of the object. Sanding increases the surface area, so the Urushi paint adheres better to the surface. However, sanding complex 3D objects is time-consuming and not easy. I usually sand the easily accessible area with 120 grit sandpaper or needle files. Then, brush the object with steel wire brush. For difficult area, rub the object in coarse silicon carbide may help. Just try your best on the sanding. There will be some area that you cannot sand. Step 4. Paint a thin layer of raw Urushi on the 3D printed cat. I'm using sashime. You will need to thin the raw Urushi with turpentine at 50-50 ratio if you're painting on a wooden surface. Leave it for 5 minutes. Then, wipe off the excess with lint-free cloth. Cure the pen in a full at 90% humidity and 20 degrees Celsius for at least 24 hours. I usually let it cure for 3 days. Step 5. Mix the raw Urushi, sashime, and black Urushi, raw ilo Urushi at 50-50 ratio. This is called the lose Urushi. Paint a thin layer of lose Urushi on the cat. And wait for 15 minutes. Step 6. Sprinkle a layer of Jinoko powder or diatomaceous earth onto the cat using a sieve. This is called Makiji. Wait for 5 minutes and remove the excess with a soft brush. You may need to sprinkle multiple times to get a good coverage. Cure it in a full at 90% humidity for a day. Always wear a good mask, ideally an N95 mask when working with powder. Meow. Step 7. Seal the Jinoko powder by painting a thin layer of raw Urushi on the cat. Wait for 5 minutes and wipe off the excess with lint-free cloth. Cure it in a full at 90% humidity for a day. Step 8. Paint a thin layer of lose Urushi on the cat. Wait for 15 minutes and sprinkle a layer of yellow Tonoko powder onto the cat. This is called makisabi. Leave it for 5 minutes and remove the excess powder with a soft brush. Cure it in a full at 90% humidity for a day. Step 9. Again, seal the powder by painting a thin layer of raw Urushi on the cat. Wait for 5 minutes and wipe off the excess with lint-free cloth. Cure it in a full at 90% humidity for a day. Step 10. Lightly dry sand the cat with 400 grit sandpaper and steel wire brush. Wash it with water and dry it. Step 11. Paint a thin layer of lose Urushi on the cat. Wait for 15 minutes. Then we sprinkle sumiko powder using a funzutsu. This is called sumiko maki. Leave it for 5 minutes and remove the excess powder with a soft brush. Cure it in a full at 90% humidity for a day. Step 12. Seal the sumiko powder by painting a thin layer of raw urushi on the cat. Wait for 5 minutes and wipe off the excess with lint-free cloth. Cure it in a full-up at 90% humidity for a day. Step 13. Wet sand the cat with 400 grit sandpaper and sulugazumi until smooth to touch. Wash it with water and dry it. Step 14. Filter the Kulo Nakanori urushi with 2 layers of Shin Yoshino paper. Paint the filtered black urushi on the cat. This is the base coat. Cure it in a full-up at 80% humidity for 2 days. Step 15. Wet sand the cat with 400 grit sandpaper and sulugazumi until smooth to touch. Step 16. Seal the base coat by painting a thin layer of raw urushi. Wait for 5 minutes and wipe off the excess with lint-free cloth. Cure it in a full-up at 90% humidity for a day. The Makiji primer on this black cat fountain pen pillow is ready. Meow meow! I usually keep it in a full-up for another 7 days. As you can see, the printing defect and printing line disappear after the priming process, while the shape and detail of the cat remain the same. Now, you can paint the 3D printed object with any urushi finishing technique you like. I've painted the cat in high gloss black with colored details. You can revisit the finishing technique in Lesson 5 and Tutorial 4, 6, 7, and 8. We may make more videos on 3D printing objects. What do you think? Feel free to leave a comment down below. Sorry I haven't revealed the lucky winner for the Christmas draw because of the severe delay in the postal service. We are announcing the results now. The winner is... Yarinage Shonen! Congratulations and thank you for your all's participation. If you like this video, please give it a big thumbs up. And if you have any questions, please leave a comment. We'll talk about the Makiji finish in the next tutorial. And we'll have a special guest. Stay tuned! See you next time! Meow!